What I've got to talk about tonight is just strictly from a backcountry skier standpoint. I grew up skiing at Alta. My mom taught skiing at Alta, and then I moved away, and when I came back, this was about 20 years ago, I started backcountry skiing. But you know, like a lot of people, I bought a guidebook, the original Wasatch Tours, and I opened it up, and in it there were all these, articles and these comments about endangered areas and, threatened areas and areas that weren't going to be around anymore. And I was kind of reading it, I hadn't, the Wasatch to me just seemed huge. It was like, oh, come on, you hippies. This area there's tons of room. There's tons and tons of room. You can have heli skiing, you can have tons of resorts. Everybody can get along. It's not a problem. But as I've been doing more and more backcountry skiing, I've come to realize that the Wasatch is really a teeny, teeny little area. And there's kind of two issues that have really driven this. One is that a lot of the areas have been, whether they were owned before and then it was just enforced, or whether they were recently purchased, but we've lost a lot of areas through private property. This is the backside of Snowbird. This has been purchased since I've been here. When I first started skiing, this was just fair game. You could go up there and ski. Now we've kind of lost it to Snowbird. Another big issue has been the idea of side country or slack country. 20 years ago, you couldn't go into the backcountry. It was kind of, it was all roped off. It was very off limits. I'm not sure quite what changed with it, but now it's kind of a thing. A lot of people go to Alta because it has a great out of bounds area, and they go to Snowbird because you can ski out of bounds. So the issue with that is that you have an area like this. This is Snowbird, off to the side. That's all the Snowbird area, and you buy a ticket and you go skiing there. Well, off to the side, this whole area, Scotty's, suddenly is slack country. You can get there. Now, from a resort or skier's perspective, this is great. You take a high traverse out and you get all this backcountry. But from a backcountry skier's perspective, you're not going to hike for hours to basically go up an area that's got 200 sets of tracks in it, right? And you also lose a lot of access. So even though these resorts are slowly expanding, a big thing about this is the idea that the slack country is also expanding with it. The first 3 outings that I did in the Wasatch, one of them was up here. This was up in the canyons. And this was in 1991. A group of us went up there. Now, the canyons at the time was Park West. And it was a little dinky area. The chairlifts would fall off. The cats would catch on fire and leak. It was kind of it was great. It was kind of a joke. But in that, okay, still is. But since then, it's turned into the canyons. So we've lost areas like Sound and Music, 9990, Square Top. All of those areas are now off limits. They're resort skiing now. Okay, so be it. But we've also lost a huge amount of slack country in there, especially off the top of 9990. That's all technically backcountry, even though it's more like front country. And then specifically off the backside and in the Murdoch area, because you can't, in Utah, you can't skin uphill. In Colorado you can, but in Utah, there's no uphill traffic. Kind of makes sense. If I was running a ski area, I don't know if I'd want uphill traffic mixed with downhill traffic. But to get to these areas, like off the backside of the canyons now, you would have to walk all the way from the backside, probably an hour and a half walk. And why would you do it when it's totally tracked up? You basically wouldn't. So we've really lost a lot of these areas, especially around here. Second tour I did was to the top of Snowbird, Twin Peaks. And that area has also had a huge amount of expansion. This is what it was like 18 years ago. Now, Mineral Basin has kind of been absorbed into it, and also a huge amount of slack country off to the side. The White Pine area, down the side, Scotty's specifically, are all kind of undesirable as far as backcountry skiing goes. A third place that we went up to, these just all happened to be 1, 2, 3 in a row, was Grizzly Gulch area. And Grizzly Gulch is still, I'm not quite sure what the status of it is, but nowadays there's cat skiing up there. So these areas that 18 years ago that were just open for the public are now have some serious access issues to something like that. But I wanted to go out and really see, is this possible? Are they really putting a lift up Flagstaff? So I walked up there, late in the season, and it was like, wow, they aren't kidding. They're really, they've surveyed this area. And in going up there, when you get out of a room and you actually go up there and you look around, it really hits you. It's like this would have a huge, huge impact on backcountry skiing in the Wasatch. When you're standing up there and looking around, it really gives you an idea of, the scope of this. And one thing that would happen right off the bat is this lift, which would go right up there, is right at one of the most popular trailheads in the Wasatch. It's Pole Line Pass or Flagstaff or Our Lady of the Snow or the Alta Trailhead. I mean, all this traffic is just from backcountry skiers. It's a very, very popular trailhead, and for good reason. You can hike up 45 minutes and be right in the heart of the Wasatch backcountry, some of the best skiing around. I mean, there's really nothing like it in the U.S. that compares to the access and the quality of the skiing right here. And, as I mentioned before, one problem with putting lift in is you immediately lose your uphill access. So all of that trailhead and all of that uphill track would go away. This is on the south side, that's Alta in the background. This whole area, Emma Ridge, would be gone. And the reason that, it's great is you can get to areas like this. This is all just backcountry skier traffic. This is Cardiac Bowl. This isn't helicopters or, anything else. These are all just people hiking, usually over Flagstaff, to get into the heart of the Wasatch backcountry. So it's a very popular area for obvious reasons. And, looking at it from another way, this is currently where Alta is. Alta's all covered in there. And putting the lift up the side is effectively going to, expand Alta, which is already a huge area, off to the side, and then all of that Emma Ridge area would be closed to uphill traffic. And then there's this area up at the very top, the Michigan City, the Davenport, Patsy Marley type area. I'm not quite sure what the ownership is on that, but it would be turning Alta, or the top of Little Cottonwood, into kind of this private reserve. It's no longer just open for anybody to go anywhere. I mean, there's Alta now, but you can also go up the Emma Ridges, you can go up Patsy Marley. There's a lot of access up there. So this lift would be really kind of effectively closing off the top part of Little Cottonwood Canyon. And so these areas are very concentrated. The Wasatch is kind of seen as a big, huge area, which it may be, but you really can't ski below, say, 7,000 feet or 6,000 feet. You get into a lot of scrub and stuff like that. So the center of the Wasatch and the prime skiing is really in a very small, concentrated area. And if you go in and put a lift in there, right up there, and then we end up doing that, once again, it kind of shows the head of the whole canyon is going to be sealed off. And the more devastating thing is the idea that all of this is now going to just be slack country. Right now, it's really easy to make it up there, 45 minutes, and then you can ski down. If there's a lift in there, it's even going to take that little, hurdle away. It's just going to be a huge amount of traffic in this area. And if you keep in mind, this is where the top of the stake was. This is kind of a, what's at stake as far as backcountry skiing. You see these two little trees in the background there? They're the same trees in the back. So the lift is going to be, according to these stakes, the lift would stop right about here. So this entire area, this is the Flagstaff area. This is also Dawn Patrol, sorry, Anna. We would have a lift stopping right there. And that's going to pump, this is right in the center of Days Fork. I mean, all of this area is now going to be slack country. You can then turn around with an easy skin along the ridge. You'll be able to make it into Silver Fork. I mean, there's Silver Fork, Days Fork, Mill D, all of that is really the heart of the Wasatch backcountry. Easy access, great skiing. There's a lot to it. South side, I mean, not as desirable from backcountry skiing standpoint, but it also can be really good at times, and it would be a tragedy to kind of lose that area. This photo of Alta is kind of a classic, and I think the reason that it is classic is that it brings up this certain nostalgia. It's like you look at that and you're like, wow, figure 8's right down the center of High Rustler. It's like, wow, those were the days, right? And this is what it's like nowadays. There's just so many people using the Wasatch now that it's really changed things, and it's hard to ever get that back. And as far as that goes, it would just be a tragedy to see the Wasatch backcountry become a totally bumped out mogul run, in my opinion.